The following is a conversation with Captain Nik Huzlan, the former chief pilot of Malaysia Airlines and a man who spent over 30 years navigating the silent, vast expanses of the sky. In the history of aviation, no mystery is more haunting or emotionally taxing than the disappearance of flight MH370. On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777, a masterpiece of modern engineering, simply just vanished. It left behind a void that for 12 years has been filled with grief, theories, and a desperate search for the truth. But for Captain Nik, this is not just a technical puzzle to be solved with the flight data. It is personal. In 1979, long before the world knew his name, he sat in the flight school alongside Zaharie Ahmad Shah. They were friends, colleagues, and two young men who shared a love for the machine and the freedom of the clouds. Today, we bridge the gap between the man he knew and the actions we cannot explain. This is the Sit Down with Sid podcast. And now, here is my conversation with Captain Nik Huzlan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our audience from around the globe. I'm your host, Sid, and welcome back to the Sit Down with Sid podcast, where we bring people together, one conversation at a time. A quick note before we begin. MH370 remains a complex mystery. The views expressed here are those of our guests as we provide a platform for various perspectives in this ongoing story. Joining us today is a man who sits at the unique intersection of technical mastery and an intimate personal history with this tragedy. Captain Nik Huzlan is the former chief pilot of Malaysia Airlines and a veteran who spent decades commanding the Boeing 777. But beyond the stripes and the rank, he brings a perspective few others can. He was a flight school classmate and a colleague of Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah. Captain Nik, as we sit here with the Ocean Infinity search underway in the southern Indian Ocean, your ability to translate the anatomy of silence and bridge the gap between the man and the machine is more critical than ever. It is a profound privilege to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you, I reckon, in New York, and good morning here in Malaysia. I'm pleased that
Oh,
we got into contact. And
yes.
apart from the normal mainstream television interviews that I used to do for the country, this is the first of this sort of talk about MH370 on this podcast kind of thing.
No, no, this is
Yeah.
great. And as I said, we are running a dedicated MS370 series, and we have gotten tremendous love and support from the community. So we are grateful to you for accepting the invite. With that being said, let's get right into it. So, Captain Nik, for our audience new to the mystery, could you briefly share your journey with Malaysia Airlines and your role as the chief pilot during your tenure?
I can easily say that I'm a child of Malaysia Airlines. I was picked up from school together with Captain Zaharie. He's one batch my senior, about 2 months ahead.
Hmm.
And there was a program for cadet pilots in the 70s for our local boys to take over from the expatriates and all that as we set up our airline. And we are actually one of the first few batches that do this cadet pilot program. And I've stayed with MAS until my retirement. So I'm a golden child of MAS, or rather, MAS was the golden father to me, provided me with everything. There's a lot of passion and love for my airline that has given me everything. Even my wife was an MAS, ex-MAS stewardess. So everything is
Oh,
Malaysia Airlines. My life has revolved around this company. So I
Oh,
started out from a kampung, a small village, no electricity, no water, nothing. And because I was lucky enough to be selected out of thousands of people who applied for the cadet pilot program, I'm forever, indebted to my company in that
wow.
way. So I started on the F-27,
Mm-hmm.
the Fokker 27, and progressed as a co-pilot all the way up to the DC-10. Then I came down for command on the 737-400, and eventually ended up on the 777. That's my pilot career. And then my progression in management was quite a colored story, because we had a total upheaval of the airline 30 years ago, when we started going really commercial, and we had hungry corporate people taking over the airline, and they
Mm-hmm.
changed everything, flight time limitations and stuff like that. That actually affected flight safety. So I joined the union. So I became the
Mm-hmm.
vice president, the voice of the pilots. And we had a good agreement. Eventually, we solved the problems. The pilots got a fantastic pay rise,
Mm-hmm.
27%, never before. And
Wow.
I switched sides after that, because management said, "Hey, I think we got something between your ears that we can use. So why don't you come over this side and be our chief pilot, and
Okay.
and and do what you do, protecting the pilots and protect the airline, the interest of the airline." And that's how I got into management until I retired about 10 years ago, just before MH370. Now, had I not retired, I would not be on television at all, because
Okay.
the company has they're very shy when it comes to
Yes.
this sort of thing, understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a free agent, basically, and the TV stations looked for me because of my closeness with Zaharie and my recent. And I flew the 777,
Mm-hmm.
and I flew the route frequently,
Oh,
so
okay.
I have some level of familiarity. So that's basically how I got into this MH370 interview kind of thing. So
Wow.
that's me.
What a
I'm now
what
70
a
years old.
you look pretty young, and
Yeah.
very handsome for your age. That's a
Yeah.
very fascinating background. So, my other question to you now is: you have a unique perspective as someone, as you said, who knew Captain Zaharie Shah personally from the flight school in 1979. What was he like as a colleague and as a pilot?
Well, when I started out, I knew him. I don't know him at all. We came from various parts of the country. We got together. Each batch was about 10 to 12 people,
Mm-hmm.
cadets, and he was two batches ahead of me. Two batches, I think, but 3 months ahead of me in the program. So we know each other pretty well. We went through the same syllabus. We went through the same sort of training, and
Mm-hmm.
in the same flying school. We lived in the same hostels, so we kind of know, if there's any unusuality, or anything that sticks out from common ground with regards to characterization of cadet pilots, which
Mm-hmm.
was the reason why we were chosen standard people. So Zari was, I would say that he started to shine quite early
Mm-hmm.
in the flying side. Interest
Mm-hmm.
was there, and some of us were just picked up from school. Some of us in the batch had no interest in flying at all. It was a scholarship for engineering, scholarship for oil and gas, and scholarship for Malaysia Airlines cadet pilots. So some of them chose to be pilots, and I would say that they are very, very good airline pilots, but they're not really aviator. Aviation interest was not their game. They're just
Mm-hmm.
very good airline pilots. They went through the grind, and they retired as great, productive airline pilots. But I think the spirit of aviation may not be with them. Different with Zahari, different with
Mm-hmm.
me as well, because I used to read a lot about flying. I've been always interested in flying ever since I went for joy flight on a Cessna 172 when I was, 7 years old. Zahari too was well read, and he knew planes even before we started flying. So I would say that he falls into a category of an aviator, not just merely an airline pilot who was lucky enough to get a job, train, and become one. So, and he's a normal, jovial guy,
Mm-hmm.
enjoys life quite a bit in our cadetship. As we grew into the airline, we kind of drifted. We kind of drifted. We just became colleagues rather than friends. And so there it was for all the years. He got promoted through the normal ways from the Fokker 27. We were based in Kota Kinabalu. That's an outpost of Malaysia Airlines where we run the Fokker Friendship in Borneo. And then he got transferred to Kuala Lumpur. A year after that, I got transferred to Kuala Lumpur, and we went through normal progression. But as after 10 years, after getting command, he seems to have gone into the training side. He was selected to do training, a lot of training, until he became an aircraft examiner, a rated aircraft examiner. So that puts him in the top 10% of the normal line pilots. I, on the other hand, gravitated more towards management, not really technical, but management, and eventually ended up in business departments as chief pilot for regional operations. I used to run the Hajj and charter. Zaharie will continue on with no interruption, with no issues, nothing. And being a chief pilot, if any pilot has a problem, he'll come to my table. Zaharie had no such. Zaharie was invisible, which means he was doing his job as best as he could. So I would say one of the things that demarcate him from other airline pilots is his real interest in aviation. All things aviation.
Wow. That's
We were bachelors. He got married pretty early to the same wife that he disappeared later. He was married. He got married very, very early. So that is one of the reasons why we split. We were bachelors. He was married. We stayed in the same place. We had the same parties, but he would not partake in it because he was a very good, dedicated family man. So our lives diverged from there. But as far as competencies in aircraft flying and all that, he is among the best. And I would say so, especially so on the 777, because Malaysia Airlines was the launch customer for the Boeing 777.
interesting.
When it was launched, it was United Airlines and Malaysia Airlines that bought the first 777. We were the first to put the 777 online. And I reckon those days, Zaharie was very much in tune with the induction of this new type of aircraft. So if there's any doubt about his integrity with regards to his ability as an aviator and an airline pilot, I think this, to me, vacuums everything out of the picture, and he's just one of those model airline pilots that a lot of people should aspire to be.
Wow, that's so amazing that you talked. So like it's such an honor to have you here because a lot has been said about him online, social media, and there would be no one better than you to vouch or to present your side from the aviation point of view about his profession, about his integrity, and once again, we are so thankful to you for taking the time on your vacation to do this with us. Thank you so much, Captain Nik.
My pleasure.
Okay, now let me take you back to March 8th, 2014. Flight MH370 vanished, simply just vanished. As a senior figure in the aviation community at that time, what was your initial reaction when you heard a Boeing 777 has simply vanished from the face of Earth?
I remember that day like yesterday, as clear as yesterday. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up for my subuh prayers, which is about 6:30, I think 6 o'clock in the morning. And there was a message to say that aircraft missing, MES aircraft missing, from my group of people. The aircraft missing. Was what aircraft is missing? So we were WhatsApping each other, or I don't know. We were contacting each other on social media, and that's it. It just stopped there. Aircraft missing. I said, okay, something will come up. Something will come up. And who's the pilot? Zaharie. Nothing. No problem. Probably maybe emergency landing, radio failure, whatever it is. The passengers are in good hands with Zaharie at the helm. So every Saturday and Sunday I will ride my bike. I love riding motorcycles to the twisty roads of Genting, up hills, and we'll have coffee at Starbucks there. So like a madman, I'll ride my bike. It's everything I do every week. And we'll have coffee, and the calls kept on coming. I said, they can't find the plane. They can't find the plane. I said, so what else do you know? I don't know, but there was a report that the plane landed somewhere in Hangzhou, somewhere in China. There was a rumor early on that the plane landed
Really?
in one of the airports in China. That was the first
Mm-hmm.
rumor. So I called my people who were working for me before, and since I run charter flights, we know China very, very well in airports that MES do not fly to. So one of the airports that was mentioned was the airport that I used to fly as a charter guy, but the airline did not fly to. So I had ground control people, ground
Mm-hmm.
handling staff there. And I gave them a call. Can you go to the airport and see if there's this plane, big plane, white in color, red and blue stripes, if it's sitting on a tarmac with a kind of a Malaysia Airlines insignia. And they
Mm-hmm.
called me and said, there's none. There's none. So, okay, then the mystery deepened. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the main television station, TV3, called me up. And I went to the TV station straight away in my riding gear. And it's even on YouTube today. I'm riding gear and going through for the next 4 hours, trying to unravel, trying to shed light on this missing aeroplane. And I still was not very alarmed because, you know, something as big as that. And we know the route. We know where it flies to. And if the loss was an hour or an hour and a half after the flight, then it would have been overland. And it's all a populated area. The route that we fly to, I'm very familiar with the route. It's all over populated area. They would have seen something. Something would have, but nothing happened. So then we waited for the first press conference by the government.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in shambles, and they are hiding behind the fact that, oh, we don't know what to do because it's unprecedented, which I did not agree. But anyway, that's another story. But that's how it was. So I was on television on one side. They were having a press conference, and I was speaking info from the press conference as best as I can. But eventually, by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, I was able to come up with a kind of a conclusion to say that whatever it is, the flight has ended. The aircraft carried 7.5 tons or 7.5 hours of fuel. It
Mm-hmm.
must have landed somewhere. It could have crashed, but it must have met, I did not say crash, the aircraft would have met the surface of the earth somewhere. It can't keep on flying beyond 7 hours, 7 hours, 30 minutes, 59 tons. I was fresh off the 777, so I would know endurance and all that. So this was my statement for the next 1 or 2 days. Before things started, information, I would say disheveled information that came bits and pieces, even though they came from the top people. They were
Mm-hmm.
totally unorganized. They looked evasive when they were questioned by the press. The first 24 hours actually defined, the first 48 hours defined the believability of what happened to MH370. It set a platform that people in power don't really know, or are they hiding something? Or you know the doubts, the seeds of doubt was set during the first few interviews and press conferences, merely for the reason that when people ask them, is that true, they're mangosteens, and the people on top say, we will check. Is that true? The aeroplane landed in China. And the answer was, we will check. You
Mm-hmm.
would know. Being on top there, you would know. You would, I would expect you would have all the cargo manifest there. You will be
Mm-hmm.
sure of what the plane is carrying. Within the next 3 hours, you would know and prepare yourself for the press conference. So I was quite disappointed with my colleagues. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to run the TV thingy with 4 different stations over the next 72 hours, trying to talk in simple language to the citizens of Malaysia, in simple
Mm-hmm.
language. Not talking about degrees, not talking about knots and this and that, but we're talking about, how to understand what is happening. But in essence, the statement I made was the flight has ended somewhere. It can't be anywhere else. Seven by about 9 o'clock or 8:45, fuel would have finished. It would have landed somewhere, and that's where it remained. Further
Mm-hmm.
to that, the next couple of interviews, somebody let slip the aircraft made an air turn back, and that was on Sunday. The incident, the loss was on Saturday morning. By Sunday
Mm-hmm.
morning, the chief of the air force let loose and said that the aircraft made a reciprocal heading change. I caught that very quickly. It's an air turn back. then they denied it, or rather they were, how they say, they were not very forward with that information later. Again, this is actually the reason why there's so many doubts, because things that's easily discoverable,
Mm-hmm.
this information flow did not come up very easily. You would have a briefing sheet, and that would have
Mm-hmm.
controlled the wild press. CNN, BBC, they had their okay, the passenger name list. Yes, keep that quiet first because we have not told the relatives and stuff like that, you know. But there are things that's already on the table that can be shared, which need not be questioned. We should not originate from the press to ask through their own, they carry mangosteens, carry lithium batteries, and when people hear lithium batteries, people start jumping. And when
Mm-hmm.
the answer was, we will check how much lithium batteries was on board, that is, to me, totally unacceptable. So that actually set the platform of doubt as to how much we know, how much the government, is willing to share. And if they're not willing to share things that's easily available over the table, then they look evasive. So that started the whole ball rolling with regards to the mystery of MH370.
Wow. So didn't
And,
Malaysian
and I was
authority?
right in the thick of it.
Wow. But didn't Malaysian Airlines took the credibility or a step forward? I mean, as the airline, you would know faster. I don't know how it works in Malaysia. If the government is supposed to break the news, or if the airlines is supposed to break the news. I don't know how it works. Maybe you can chime in on this.
Well, it's like this. When that thing happened, they thought that getting the head of everything, getting the head of DCA, the Department of Civil
Mm-hmm.
Aviation, getting the head of the Air Force, the head
Mm-hmm.
of police, the head of MAS, and giving them and putting these people towards a bunch of reporters, you know, is a good thing to do, which to me is a bad thing to do. Now, a guy can be the head of something, but he can't handle the press. His answers are not there. So it was not
Well
done
said.
very, very well. And you have four characters. Sometimes when a question is thrown away, they are looking at each other to sort of like trying to get an approval as to, should I answer this? I may seem a bit accusatory and critical, but it's all there on YouTube. You can download it and you can see it today. The first few press conferences were a major disaster, and that actually set the tone of
President.
distrust. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So that
Wow.
was my feeling then. I said, this is a walk in the park. You've got all the information, and it's okay to say that we don't know at this moment where the plane went, but we know what plane it is. We know the number
Mhm.
plate. We know how much fuel it carried. We know who are the people on board. We know all these things we can share with you. But when you're
Mhm.
evasive and people have to ask how many tons of mangosteen, where did it come from, then this becomes a process of interrogation with that turn towards hostility. We had a hostile press after that because they find that they're not getting simple answers they're supposed to get. And they're talking to the top people. The top people, the buck stops at the head of MAS as to where the aircraft has gone. And as far as the radar and all that, the top of the RMAS. But I guess some people are not trained to talk like this. So they should have done the press conferences better. So there was a lot of damage there.
Hmm.
So that's
Okay.
how I felt on that particular day.
Wow. Uh, Unbelievable. Uh, okay. Moving on. You have mentioned in your previous interviews that through a process of elimination, human intervention is a hard theory to ignore. How do you view the theory of intentional intervention versus a mechanical ghost flight?
When I basically knew already when the EMASAT findings were released, all the
Hmm.
pings and all that. The moment you know the aircraft flew for 7.5 hours before it ended. The moment you knew that we know that the aircraft made a U-turn, and we know that the aircraft flew in a controllable manner. It can't be a ghost flight because if a ghost flight, you got to have there's a certain time that the ghost flight happens. And after that, the aircraft will just fly like the Helios case. The other ghost flight, the 2 or 3 ghost flights where you have hypoxia, you have all and generally it's hypoxia.
Mm-hmm.
Pilots were sitting fat, dumb, and happy on their seats as the oxygen, the pressurization leaks with the altitude horn coming in, and yet they're sitting there. And that has been shown to have happened. But the end product is the moment that happens, the aircraft will not change anything. Keep on flying its last set heading, speed, if it's on autopilot, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually run out of fuel, and the end will be a spiral down to the surface of the Earth. So when we knew the aircraft started turning left and right, we knew I know someone was at the control. So it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. There is a time when something happened, and if the oxygen goes there, fire happens or whatever, everybody's incapacitated, and the aeroplane has the good luck of still can fly
Mm-hmm.
until the end of endurance, then the ghost flight scenario is there. But if there's just 1 or 2 turns, that's more than enough already. So, like I said, it's not really rocket science. It's very simple. There are defining moments in MH370, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
defining moments, a lot of solid clues that seems to indicate that you can eliminate everything else. The only thing that remains is someone on board the aircraft must have done something.
So you are aligning with the
Unlawful.
human intervention angle here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Captain Zaharie. I just say human intervention because
Yes.
for me to say Captain Zaharie, I need to have 100% proof.
Yes.
If I have 1% doubt, I will not say it. And it is not right for anyone to say it. As long as there's 1% proof.
Great.
It's not even reasonable doubt. It's just any iota of doubt. You cannot say he did it. And I will never say it. I would not say it. He's a friend of mine. He's a colleague. We flew together. I'm the last guy to simplify everything and say Zaharie did it. Never. Never. Let the facts come out when we find the plane.
Wow. Okay. I have some couple of technical questions. As I mentioned, off camera, we had Captain Peter Turner on our episode, and we have gotten tremendous response from the community. There are some technical questions, if you don't mind, I would share. Number one
Yeah.
is often debate about the 777's communication systems, ACARS and transponder. From a
Yeah.
pilot's perspective, how difficult is it for a pilot to intentionally disable the 777's communication systems while keeping it flying for hours?
Well, the three fingers on the right hand for the captain. That's all. Go to the CDU, disable the ACAS,
Mhm.
and then turn the transponder off without even leaving your seat, without even putting up the armrest. That's as simple as that. But to do that without telling people on the other end that you intentionally turn it off, that would require a bit of work. I can turn it off now, and you would know that I turned it off. You would know I turned off the transponder. The transponder did not lose power. You would know. Likewise, if I do that with the ACAS will tell the ground people intentionally log off for whatever reason. So it is very easy. It's extremely easy. We use the ACAS on a daily basis.
Mhm.
A finger pad, a mouse pad, finger pad, couple of keyboards, and that's it. No mystery there. The hard part is that when I turn it off, I don't want you to know I turn it off. That's the hard part. Likewise with the transponder. The transponder is just like a fan, the switch of the transponder is just like the fan in your house that has number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're at number 5 and you
Mhm.
want to turn it off, you got to go through 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. But if you turn off the main switch, then the switch remains at number 5. And the same thing with the transponder. Turn off the main switch and power is removed. But if you switch it off, then it starts sending all sorts of signals as it transits through the stops of the transponder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got Tara, you've got exponder, you've got standby, you've got alt reporting, and all this is like a fan. If the fan is linked to a kind of a black box and all that, it will tell you that the fan was running at number 5 and the man switched it off and stopped at number 3 for a while and then turn off to
Mm-hmm.
0. It all be recorded. But if you remove the main 3-pin plug, that's it. So easy. To turn off, very easy. To turn off in a stealth manner will require some thought.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, the SDU, the satellite data unit, is powered by the left AC bus. My question to you
Right.
is, could a pilot use that bus as a de facto switch to go dark, and why would that power have been restored for an hour later?
Okay, I can't recall because it's been a long time since I touched the aeroplane, more than 10 years. And when you talk electricity, that's something like black magic to me, to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, even pilots. We'll just memorize the circuit and that's it. Doesn't fail much. And then there are procedures to handle it. But when you try to be creative, I can't say. If you take off the left bus, I do not know whether the SDU will jump to another power supply automatically. I can't tell you
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I cannot tell you for sure. I can't recall. Maybe
Okay.
current 777 pilots can. Okay, I can't tell you for sure, but I know for a fact that there's certain redundancies. Some are left AC bus, some are right AC bus, and all that. If I deselect the left AC bus, I don't know how I can do that. But
Mm-hmm.
would the right AC bus just jump over because they may consider an SDU to be a very important component for the aircraft itself. So sorry, despite flying the 777 for many years, I cannot recall.
No, it's no problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically regarding the 1825 SATCOM log on, could damage near the
Yeah.
oxygen bottles have triggered the ELMS to shed electrical loads, causing a battery depletion and a SATCOM reboot?
Okay.
And, and
The oxygen bottle is a physical, and it does not run through computers, click and all that. Maybe the oxygen mask, the pickup, the microphone in the oxygen mask could be affected because that's electrical.
Mhm.
Say again? Yeah. But the oxygen itself, very unlikely. I would say that if you turn off the water, if you turn off the lights, would it affect the tap water in the house? But in some houses it does because you turn off electricity, the water pump don't work. So it depends very much. But on the 777, the oxygen has nothing to do with the
Mhm.
electric in itself because there are valves and all that. So turning off the AC, the SDU thingy will not. But I don't think will have any connection to the oxygen.
Okay, and my follow-up question on the same one was, does this death spiral offer a more credible explanation than a malicious narrative?
Hard to say. What I know is this: based on what we found out, we know
Mhm.
that at a certain point, the defining moment of MH370 is when the transponder is goodbye Malaysia when Zaharie. It is not the co-pilot. It is Zaharie. Why is it Zaharie? That is a flight check. This boy, the young man on the right, has a very bright career in front of him.
Mhm.
He is on his 7th flight, and that flight is his final line check. And Zaharie is checking him out. In other words, if things have gone normally, they would have Zaharie would have given him the sector. How it works in MAS is like this. If you're under check, I expect you to operate as if your alone captain is dead. You should be
Hmm.
able to manipulate the aircraft to come to a safe landing alone, being a new guy. That's part of the exam, if you like. So what happens is that you start the engine. Those are all captain's responsibility. It does not matter who is pilot flying. Captain's responsibility. Taxi is captain's responsibility. This is in Malaysia Airlines. It remains that way. Taxiing and all that is captain's responsibility. The aircraft will be handed over to the co-pilot just before entering the runway. Just after lining up on the runway, the
Mhm.
captain will say, your control. Then the captain will take over the radio and get takeoff clearances. Now the co-pilot becomes the pilot flying. Farik becomes the pilot flying. Zaharie plays his role as a co-pilot and assist. So all the radio calls were made by Zaharie because Farik is flying the aeroplane right up to the last moment. And then obviously there could be a PA. Part of the exam is the co-pilot. Sometimes they are shy. Make a PA, tell the passengers where we're going as they do their climb. Things like this will happen. So I don't know where that seems to be some doubt whether who said good night and all that. No, it's Captain Zaharie, as per the record. And he said it again. If you recall, he said good night. He said maintaining flight level 350 twice. We caught that very early as soon as the transcript was released. That was the first thing I saw. He said it again. People got excited. But I would be a bit cautious in getting excited because these things happen. I have forgotten myself. So when you hit flight level 350, you tell the controller maintaining flight level 350. Controller say, okay, good, you're there. Then 10 minutes later, the stewardess comes in after nice coffee and all that. Did I call? No harm calling again. Labo control, Malaysian 370, maintaining flight level 350. And the co-pilot could have reminded. I mean, there are things that can happen in the cockpit. Co-pilot, hey, Cat, you said that already, or did I? No harm done. Better to be safe than sorry, so I said it again. So that should not be a kind of a trigger point to get people excited until you do have people trying to see the tone of the voice, break up the voice into various spectrum and frequencies and all that. But I wouldn't be overexcited about that. Because a couple of minutes later, after the good night, the defining moment of MH370 is only in the next 96 seconds, I think, between good night until the transponder goes on. That is what defines MH370. When transponder goes off, aeroplane starts turning away, right? And the flight path later on, through the military radar, we found out the flight path was a bit irregular in the sense that, it was going up and down, changing altitude from 2,000 feet plus to 1,000 feet below and this and that, It seems like somebody is trying to hand fly the aeroplane without the autopilot, which is not an easy thing to do on a large airliner.
And why is
You know
that?
that we all know that large airliners cannot depart without the autopilot. Cannot depart. You can't go and you can't fly without the autopilot. Maybe you can fly without passengers to bring the aircraft home for repair. But you cannot depart an aircraft without an autopilot. That's how important the autopilot's role is in cruise. 7 hours of manipulating control, changing CG, fuel moving back and forth, stewardesses pushing carts back and forth. Minor changes in CG at a speed of 0.9, 90% speed of sound. Minor changes will change the angle of attack minutely and may cause the aircraft to go up and down, up and down. So you're constantly adjusting the controls to maintain a certain level. So these are the irregularities that come, but it all started in that 96 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, 107 to 102 or something. I can't just pull out the numbers, but it's between good night until the time transponder went off. Immediately after that, aeroplane made a turn. And later on, we found out the turn was not autopilot, was outside autopilot regime of flight, which means it was manually turned. And there was this talk about the ADIZ, Air Defense Zone of Thailand, trying to avoid that. That seems very plausible because the Thais will get excited. Now, remember, the radar, there's so many radars there. We have a very high-tech radar at Gongkada. Gongkada is on the east coast, which is about maybe 80 nautical miles from the flight path. And that's a military radar. You fly a Cessna, no transponder, nothing, they can pick it up. And then up there, just to the north, 200 nautical miles up, maybe 150 nautical miles up, the Thais have an airbase at Surat Thani. Definitely there's a radar there. And then we've got Butterworth near Penang. There's a radar there. It used to be an Australian airbase. The RAAF used to put their planes there. They went off 15 years ago, but the airbase remained, and we have a radar there. Butterworth radar. And then as you turn right after Penang, going up to the north towards the Sentinel Islands, towards Myanmar, to up north, in the Andaman, there's Lok Sumawi. Lok Sumawi is a huge Indonesian airbase. So you have all these circles of radar coverage, circling each other, intersecting each other like that. So, they know what's happening. The only problem of getting the information was difficult because the Thais do not want people to know how good their radar is. Likewise, the Indonesian, likewise, Malaysia itself, or radar could be defective, and that could become a big deal. How can the radar be defective? You can't spot it. So these are all interconnected stuff that compel parties not to share. It became very slow in sharing the flight path and all that. Lots of persuasion required. It took 2 weeks, before we know. When it's all there, there's $1 billion radar. You can't spot a 777 flying without transponder. What is this? Your enemies come in airplanes without transponder. They don't come with transponder. Your radar is supposed to be able to get that. So those are the things that happen. And all that happened following the 90 seconds. Good night to the turn of the transponder. And later on, we knew that transponder was turned off. So there's human intervention going on. And then human intervention continued throughout the flight until it disappeared. And Imasat started telling us tales about the pings and all that. So this is
I
the
mean,
thing here that I don't know, not many people mention things like this.
yeah, this is something new that you're just sharing
But
the 90
there's
second gap.
geopolitical issues as well. There's geopolitical issues as well, and then you have to go through various levels. Hey, boss, they are asking for this. Shall we ask the general? Oh, no, this one got to go to the bigger general. Or we need to go to the Ministry of Defense. We need to do this, we need to do that, So different countries, different ways of sharing. And, it's not within their what we call key priority index
I
to be
mean, this
sharing
must be
information. Right?
this must be personally very frustrating for you to see what's going on. Based on just our conversation we are having, I can feel
Yeah,
that.
it was frustrating because basically 90% of the things that was a mystery was quite easily explained, and hence in people who are in the hands of knowledgeable people who are unable to share this on a proper table, on a proper knowledge dump for us to start canceling things and draw a story. They were so evasive that we knew the aeroplane turned. It was told. The aeroplane was, we were told on television, and then it was kind of pulled back later. They did not highlight this very much. It was told on Sunday afternoon, I think about 11 o'clock. I was there,
Hmm.
that the plane made a U-turn. And yet, we told the Vietnamese, the Thais, and the Chinese to search the South China Sea until Thursday. Total waste of resources. That pissed a lot of people off. I mean, look, Thais have nothing to do with it. And say again, can you pass some ships and planes just cover around the area of South China Sea where the flight could have gone? And you bloody well know the plane made a U-turn. There's no way it can crash in South China Sea. And it not alarmed me. It disappointed me. I don't know. I have no stake in it, but it pisses me off to know there are books written about theories of the plane being shot down by the Americans doing an exercise over the South China Sea when you bloody well know the plane turned left within 36 hours. And the search went on until Thursday. So that's what
Wow.
MH370 is all about.
Wow. Okay. Moving on. I know you had mentioned in this previous conversation, looking at the transponder behavior and the loss of the altitude data plane going up and down. Do you see an evidence of a mastermind at work or a crew who is struggling through a failure where the inertial nav went down while the GPS remained active?
Okay, Sid, I say three things about MH370. Three things. Number one,
Sure.
capability. Number two, opportunity. Number three, motive. This is what that person, whoever it is, whoever who does it, these are the three things that's what that is what MH370 is all about. We know, I am sure, human intervention. One. Number two, can only be done from the cockpit within that time period. Can only be done from the cockpit. And there must be some level of insidious motive, anger, or a message that needs to be sent through. So that talks about motive. But number one, that person is a very capable person. He must know the aircraft very, very, very well. And that person only got caught by the voluntary, or rather involuntary, ping intervals. Nobody knew about the ping. Nobody. Even veterans on the 777, they are lying to you if they say they know that the engine sent every hour and all that. No, because it doesn't affect you at all. It's just a reporting thingy, and it does not affect you at all. It flies and they send the data. It's engineering, and they gather data for the engine life and statistics to improve engine, which has nothing to do with us. So those ping was the one that actually caught. I don't know whether there is a way to stop those pings or not, because it seems to run independently. Right? Or maybe total removal of electrical power. Total removal of electrical power may stop it, because there's no power source at all. But when you run the plane properly, you wouldn't know as a pilot. So these are the three things that you must look at before any questions. Before once you agree with the fact that there is human intervention, that human must be extremely capable. And given the fact that it can be done within that 90 seconds after good night to the transponder being off, I'm saying that somebody may barge into the cockpit within that time period. The first thing he do, overpower the pilots and turn off the transponder. Now, Zaharie is a trained pilot. I mean, he's really above and above average. If there's any problem with the aeroplane, 7700 on the transponder, he can just do that while smoking a cigarette without even thinking. Because that's the first thing you do. Anything happens, communicate first. Tell them your position very quick. All this can be done in seconds. And if there's anything funny going on at the back. Now, getting into the cockpit of a 777, trying to get into the cockpit of a 777, the MH370, there's an alleyway. It is not just an open door cockpit with seats around it. No. There's an alleyway. On the left is a bunk where the pilots sleep in. On the right is a cabin crew station. And it's actually a source of amusement for us pilots, because when there's a stewardess doing some work there and we have walked through, our bums will touch. It is a very narrow alley. I think it is about 7 foot long. That alley is 7 foot long by probably 2.5 foot wide. So two people can pass with some adjustments. So for somebody to go into the cockpit during that time period, overpower the pilot, set the transponder, turn off the transponder, and do whatever subsequent actions until the aircraft disappeared, seems quite unlikely. And I'm vindicated by the fact that what happened to German wings. When the captain got locked out, the captain, the crew, the fire extinguisher, and everything was banging on the door. Bang, 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 bang. Didn't break. After 9/11, I knew how tough the door was. I was there throughout. I was flying during that period, during the changes of the door, and I was in management. We had to spend money to keep the Americans happy. Otherwise, we can't fly to the US if we don't do our doors. And the doors are tough. So getting to the cockpit with two pilots inside there, within that time period, wow. And if you say they put a gun to the stewardess, just not enough time to negotiate for the perpetrator to say, if you don't open the door, I'll shoot the girl, and that only takes 15 seconds. Right? So we're talking opportunity. Again, we go back to capability, opportunity, and let's park motive for a while. But these two things are, I think it's generally agreed by everybody that this is done by in the cockpit. Whatever conspiracy bulls that we hear can be easily taken out already. Aircraft being flown by CIA, drone technology, and all that. Now, this aircraft, when we bought it, I was part of the people. We bought it, I think, in the early 2000s. And we already had 16 777 flying by that time. We were a proper 777 operator. Aircraft came, we do our maintenance check. We strip the aeroplane down after 6 years or 20,000 hours as per the requirement, right down to the bare bones, and we fix everything up. And if you say it's drone technology, then you are implying that the whole of Malaysian airline engineering are a bunch of stupid people who can't even know a foreign component on board the aeroplane. So let's chuck this drone thing out and all that. Again, we focus on human intervention because we have done everything else already. When you talk human intervention, trying to narrow down who it is, these three things come up again: capability, opportunity. You must be capable. You must be in the cockpit. It has to be done from the cockpit. And I don't know, no matter how well trained a pilot is, I don't think he can fly the plane from the E&E compartment in the belly of the aircraft. Maybe you can take power out from this and that, but to manipulate the plane from there, no, 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 that's not going to happen. So these are the three
Wow.
things, again, that I hold
Wow.
on.
Thank you. One last question on the technical part before we move to the other segment. A veteran captain recently noted that VHF-1 is wired to the battery and should have allowed a mayday call even during total failure. Given
Yeah.
the aircraft still performed coordinated autopilot turns, is it credible to claim the plane was crippled while it was navigating so precisely?
I think you're right about the radio. Almost all aeroplane, I would think. I don't know about Russian ones,
Hmm.
but most mainstream aeroplanes, hot battery bus, VHF-1, hot battery bus, last thing to be disconnected. So everything else can go before it, autopilot and stuff like that. But communication, no future. Emergency or the normal operation, communication, very, very important to do. Even on my Cessna before, it is still cockpit.
Got it. Okay. There has been a lot of talk about Zaharie Shah's home stimulator. As a pilot, do you view those deleted waypoints that were in Zaharie Shah's home stimulator as a smoking gun or simply a hobbyist exploring different routes?
Okay, let's look at the simulator first. Let's look at a pilot, a veteran pilot, 20 over 1,000 hours having a simulator at home. Let's look at that. If you ask around, I think 99%, 98% do not have a flight simulator set up in their house. We don't play with we don't play with toys, wannabe toys, when we have the real thing to fly. That's number one. Number two, for Zaharie to have one, he's a flight instructor. He's an aircraft examiner. He's got the real simulator at his disposal. He goes into the simulator probably 4 times to 5 times a month, testing other pilots. So why would you want to spend probably the price of a small car to set up a proper simulator like what he has? Is probably at least $5,000 to 7,000 US dollars, screens and stuff. When you put the price together, yet he is paid to play with a real full flight simulator that we bought at the price of half a 777. All sorts of scenarios, latest update, latest software, fidelity, accuracy that he can never hope to achieve from the things that he put together back home. Granted, he becomes a kind of a center point for other wannabe pilots who are not 777 rated, but they want to have a simulator in the house. So he became a reference point. So that could be part of the reason for him to want to share knowledge.
Hmm.
Extremely generous of him, right? It's unusual to have that. So when you go towards all these waypoints and all that, smoking gun, again, I'm not brave enough to say so, even though I have a gut feeling. I mean, the 2 points there are very telling. But then again, we have to see where are the unusual places that he has flown to. He could have tried landing in wherever, Lucknow, that short airfield in the Everest, or try to do a ditching in a lake, or just do things that you can't do in the real aeroplane. Tell you what,
Mm-hmm.
when 9/11 took place and the Arabs hit the Twin Towers, immediately after the next day, all pilots went to the simulator, put up New York, and see if we can hit the building. Flying a
Really?
777 or 70. Yeah, yeah, you would do that if you're a pilot. You'd be curious. How can this bunch of guys trained on a Cessna take over a bloody Boeing from 200 nautical miles away at 35,000 feet and steer it down and hit squarely on the Twin Towers? And one was seen to make minor adjustment so that it hit if you see the footage, you can see one of the planes making a minor adjustment.
Yes.
That's it. So a bunch of Arabs who are normally even quarrel among themselves can put to their mind and work together and manipulate this plane and steer and navigate it to one point that's less than half a square kilometer wide area, going at 15 kilometers an hour, a minute. So what do? We try. We put the aircraft somewhere, we fly, and we see whether we can hit it. Same thing, when the pilot has a simulator, they'll try everything. In the case of
Hmm.
Zaharie, he's got access that even I don't have as a chief pilot because I'm not an examiner. He's got a simulator, he can go and switch it on and say, I want to try this, I want to try that. Why did he take the trouble to build his own simulator to do this? Okay, there could be reasons of don't want people to know because, simulator time is recorded because you charge people for simulator. Simulator is an asset. Simulator time is an asset. You sell 777 time $3,000 an hour for
Mm-hmm.
simulator work. So maybe whatever you do with the simulator is recorded. So I do not know. I do not know this. But again, this is a story about simulator. We have to take a helicopter view, not just, there are two smoking gun there. We got to walk backwards, see the whole picture, who he is, what can be availed to him to do things like this. So hard to say whether it's a smoking gun or not, but it seems to point, it flows with the info. That's as
Okay.
best as I can say it.
Okay. That makes sense. And we have had the pleasure of, or I would say, we had the honor of having a lot of different guests on our MH370 series, including Grace Nathan, who represented the families, uh, and Voice 370, journalists like Jeff Weiss, technical experts like Jean-Luc Marchand, and Captain Peter Turner. We also had Blaine Gibson on the show, who actually found the physical debris. My question to you is, as a pilot, how do you reconcile these different worlds? And do you think the physical debris found by Blaine Gibson aligns with the operational reality of Boeing 777?
Okay, two points first. Now, one about Grace. I've not been in contact
Okay,
with any of the MH370 family, not even once through the years. I've independently spoken, and I only speak on this when solicited for my views. I'm not putting posts up, trying to make a story. No, not at all.
sure.
As far as the families, there is nothing I can say to them. I can't pretend to say I understand how you feel. So it's not that I'm unsympathetic. It's a very sad thing. But there's nothing of value for me, from me to them, because everything's being done by everybody else. And I must say some parts are done well, some
Hmm.
parts are done not well, but none, I can't change any of that. So with Grace and the families, I have no connection at all. Okay. We go to Blaine. It's incredible, that guy. It's incredible. His level of passion and all that is just incredible. And the flaperon thing was another defining moment, MH370. And for him to really, this is needle in the haystack, to look at little bits and pieces, which brings me to another matter, which is actually not your question, but since I remember,
Hmm.
You know the parts that are found, major, I would say 80% of the parts are external bits. We have a cabin divider, we have a seat back uh, thing cornice for the IFE that came out from the interior.
Hmm.
But a lot of components that were found were external items, which makes me extremely curious when they say that the aeroplane impacted the sea at at 500 knots or 400 knots or whatever it is at a very fast speed, enough to
To
tear it apart.
disintegrate it.
Yeah. You know how many seats there are in the aeroplane? I think there's about 310 seats, or maybe even more, 320 seats, including the pilot, the jump seat, the cabin crew seats, and all that. And all of them have flotation cushions, cushions that float. The seats have cushions that float, that stuck only with Velcro. I find it hard to believe that we can't even find one floating. And when you buy these seats are certified to float. They are certified not to be flammable. Before you can actually put these seats in the aeroplane, the certification process will tell you that it is very flame resistant. It will float for the next 10 years, things like that. And we can't even find one piece, not one piece. Passenger baggage, and it's an early part of the flight. There are a lot of peanuts in seal bags and all that. All those things float. All these things float. And if they run through the same tidal movement, they would be together, basically. You would be able to find bits and pieces of miscellaneous pieces. However, what was found was external pieces. And I'm not, I have not seen the wreckage. But from what I read and from what I see, there's some level of erosion, water erosion. It's as if that, before being detached, it met the water with some level of fury, almost like sandpaper. It scraped, liquid scrapes and all that. So I don't know. I don't know. But it mystifies me. Why? Internal items. There you should be seeing a lot of internal items. But there's none.
What does that tell you? I mean, it's interesting. Thanks for bringing this up because, as you said, most of the debris was found was external. In your own experience, being a pilot, being with Malaysian Airlines for all your life, as you call it, your baby, and what do you think? Like, where does this take your mind to? Like, what happened? Like, is this a controlled pitching? Is this a high speed
Very
impact?
early in the game, very early in all my interviews, I think after 10 days, I have already proposed that the aeroplane met the surface of, I hate the word crash and all this, so I try to mellow it down by saying the aeroplane met the surface of the water under control. And it probably broke into a few large pieces, maybe cracks in the fuselage and all that. But generally, it was quite intact. Maybe broke to three places, with cracks, and that's where the particle, the partition board came out and stuff like that. So I'm of the opinion that the aeroplane was it did a control landing, and
Mhm.
I do not know because I really do not know much about the output of the pings and all that. But the I'd like to believe that if it was done by somebody who is totally capable, and his
Mhm.
intent was to ensure that this plane sinks in one piece, chances are he landed this plane met the earth with some level of power authority on the engine. In other words, it was flown onto the ground, onto the water softly, because that's the best way possible.
What do you mean by
The
Captain
best
Nick when
way
you
to
say
ditch an
flown to the ground?
aeroplane is with power, because you can control your rate of descent. You can try again and again as you come closer to the water. You can start
Hmm.
fishing until you hit the ground and then cut the power, because now you have power. But if you don't have power, the moment you flare the aeroplane, and that's it, all energy is lost. And if you are 50 feet from the surface of the water, things may end up differently. You can stall the aircraft and all that. So I have this feeling. I mean, listen, we have one chapter in the book about ditching. In the flight crew operating manual, there is one chapter on how to ditch an aeroplane safely in the event you have to do so. And if you're running out of fuel and there's nowhere to land the aeroplane with the engines running. It gives you better power. It gives you better control as to your rate of descent. Your rate of descent can even be 15 feet a minute. Instead of the normal power off, it's got to be 700 to 900 feet a minute, if you're lucky. So again, this goes along the story of a controlled descent, and that tells you the ending is like the beginning, well planned. It was planned, it was controlled by somebody who is capable, who had the opportunity, although we don't know the motive. Again, I'm not saying Captain Zaharie. 239 people sits in the aeroplane. There are 239 people. One of the 239 must have done it. We go into the box, 239. Oh, look at this. 65 years old and above. Who are they? They are Chinese people who goes to Genting, our casino in the sky, to gamble. Let's check. Oh, they do this every year. 14 of them. They come through a tour group. Okay, 239 minus 14. Out you go. How many children do we have? Cancel. So you start eliminating the actors and actresses on board. You find in the center of the box, there's a smaller box. The more likely people. And then you start again canceling. And then that may leave a triangle. Which the crew, in other words, those who have access to the cockpit, which means the 10 cabin crew. If there was a traveling engineer, then he goes into that triangle as well. When you put that triangle, then it goes by the power you have on board the aeroplane. So the most junior stewardess and then will sit at the bottom until the most senior guy, he has total control as to who goes into the cockpit. Because he will tell this girl, okay, today you are going to serve the cockpit, get them some drinks. So they will assign this duty to this girl or this guy. Or this girl may say, Captain, hey, boss, I will take care of the cockpit today. I know the co-pilot well. Okay, your job. But who defines who goes into the cockpit? Who takes care of the pilots with regards to getting them coffee, giving them food and all that? Is the main guy sitting on top, the chief steward. So the chief steward can go poison the guys and learn from internet how to manipulate the aeroplane. You can draw your own story from that. But in that triangle, the one seated on top, unfortunately, or for better or for worse, will be Captain Zaharie. Why? By virtue that most capable, best opportunity. To be alone in the cockpit with that kind of power distance. Look, this boy is under training. This young boy, we go back to Farik. The situation in the cockpit, we go back to Farik. Farik is under training. His future in Zaharie's hands. He goes to Beijing. He flies back from Beijing. Zaharie will now sign and say, good boy, he's done this. His grooming is okay. The shoes are polished. Looks at everything. He walks properly. His PA is good. Technically, he's done this. Okay, he's very timely. He's not late in reporting. His hair is nicely. All this comes into the report. And then Zaharie will say, okay, you pass your technical and all that. Zaharie will tell him, take this license, which I've signed, go to the Department of Civil Aviation, get it annotated on your license, then take this license, go to human resource, and your pay goes up by 20%. That's the level of power Zaharie has over this young man. Okay, this young man now is a typically very lucky boy, picked up as a cadet pilot, so spend no money. Smart boy in school, applied to be a cadet pilot. Out of 2,000, he was picked up. He was given a cadetship. His flying was paid for. During that flying, he had a flying allowance. When he came back, he had a job ready for him. And in 6 years, he has progressed from a 737 to the Airbus. One course already. Airbus up to the 777. He's waiting for his captaincy in 2 years. His girlfriend, his wife, is a pilot. So you have double income in a household. He has a BMW motor car. The wife probably has another BMW motor. Look, his life is so bright. His future is so bright. He's got to wear Ray-Ban at night. He's got to wear sunglasses at night. So these are the things that people have to think about when you start looking at this capability, opportunity, and motive.
Wow. Okay. Few more questions, Captain Nick, before we wrap this up. I want to talk about the Ocean Infinity. As you know, the Armada vessel is back in the Southern Indian Ocean as of December 31st, 2025. What is your assessment of this new search area around 35 degrees south? And why do you think is this zone still the primary focus after almost 12 years?
We start with the last point. The last point, Emma said, the last contact, that is irrefutable. Everybody agrees that's a place where the aircraft is the last point. The differences is what happens after that. Did the aircraft continue flying because it's got another 15 minutes of fuel, or was this shut down due to a crash, or or if was it looking like it's going to crash until when the signal went off, all the rate of descent was very high, but maybe towards the last minute the aircraft could have gained control and glided, and all this will influence the theater of operation or operational theater of the aircraft post the last point, the last set point. So these are the biggest argument, and I believe that Malaysia, my country, not just Malaysia, any country, do not want to admit that the pilot could have done it as one of the theory. Okay, you got theory of the pilot doing this, the ghost light, run out of fuel, turn around and all that. Boss, one last one, sir. Would the pilot have done it? No, 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 no. We look into this. Let's forget the pilot bit. Now, the pilot bit is one that makes a lot of difference because then it is not, how they say, easily predictable as the crash that spiraled down into the sea. One of the biggest clue is this. I am very, very sure that there is that the plane crashed within the termination point of the morning. It needs to be sunlight. There needs to be some amount of sunlight. And it was flying along the termination, night and day. So it's right somewhere, it's got to be somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the time and the coordinate, you will see that how bright it would have been on that time. Definitely, if you're going to land safely in the water to keep the aircraft in one piece, you want to see the surface of the water. You want to see the breakers, the wave breakers, the white caps. So you'll know where the wind is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know where the waves are coming from because you don't want to hit the wave squarely. If you want to hit, if you have to, then you want to hit the lee side of the wave. Ideally, you want to be parallel to the wave so that you don't hit any waves. So all these things will require some level of sunlight. So the most important thing is where is dark and where is bright, because I believe during that time, you're right,
Mm-hmm.
the aircraft is somewhere around that area. And then we need to know whether the aircraft turn to the right, left, make a U-turn to the back, depending on the wind and the waves on that particular period. And this could influence maybe a radius of perhaps 100 nautical miles or maybe less, 80 nautical miles. And then, of course, aircraft hit the ground, the water, the current, the place it's seeing. So, this is beyond me. But what I know is this, what I feel is this.
Mm-hmm.
Ocean Infinity has sufficient faith in finding the aircraft because they come to Malaysia and they tell you, I find, you pay. I don't find, you don't pay. So obviously, Ocean Infinity being a very smart company, profitable company, they have a board of directors, and somebody will tell them, "Boss, I think we can find it." And then they sit among themselves and say, hey, "How much do you think it's going to cost if we can't find it after 55 days. So they've done their estimation. Oh, maybe per day, maybe for 200,000 US dollars per day, blah, 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 blah. And they find their risk to be only $15 million. And they come to Malaysia and say, brother, if you find the plane, you pay us 70. So it's a huge payday for them. But then again, there's also a commitment to believe in what they are doing. Ocean Infinity. I am a bit upset with my government because we could have done this without involving with Ocean Infinity as a paid finder rather than a gambling finder, because this is a huge payday shit. You know what is 70 million US dollars? You know what is 70 million US dollars? In my country, we can build 3 hospitals to save lives. To save lives, to save living people. We can use that money to pay for 3 rural hospitals. We're spending that money looking for dead people. I'm sorry to sound crass, but this is in a total picture. Okay? That 70 million. We don't know how much. We know, or rather, OI knows how much they will lose if they cannot find the plane.
Yeah, but Captain Nick, let me ask you, they have done, this is their third search since 2014. They have spanned over, I think, 150,000 plus square kilometers. They have not found anything. What are the chances they're going to find? And they are almost 3 weeks out from the current 55 day, which concludes March 7th. That's the day. They have not found anything. I mean,
Mm.
like, do you personally think they're looking at the wrong area? That is why I brought up the 35 degrees south in my question.
I'm not. I can't comment too much on that because those wonderful work is done by the 2 French guys. You know that Billy, you interviewed them. The other one is I believe I am inclined to believe Godfrey and his whisper thingy. I thought that is something that needs to be looked into. And then the university, the UG group, the independent, the IG group, the independent group. These are the 3 hopes that we have. And I reckon OI has already spoken to all, and they're looking. Okay, now there's a huge commercial stake. Now, when you talk about 70 million, and the way they are doing things today is extremely secretive. Nobody knows what they're doing except themselves. Not even the paymaster, which is Malaysia. We don't even have a representative on board on board the ship. The level of secrecy is extremely high. Sometimes I have a naughty thought that they could have found it, but they're keeping it at the right time so they can get the best money possible. So I don't know. Okay, the other thing is this: they are doing it during they're very smart to save cost. I reckon they are doing it during the ship free time. You must remember that they did a quick search in February. Was it February? Oh no, some months ago. Before this December, they did one in March or something like just a few days. And then the aircraft was on the way somewhere. So they took a detour, did a quick search while they're on the way to do a commercial find, a commercial job. Now, what's that? 1806, was it? I got 860. I mean, that ship that was looking
8605.
for it a couple of days ago.
8605.
Okay, now
8605.
05 is 05 suddenly stop the search, skip past the whisper area, didn't even have time to just go. It's already there. Straight to Fremantle, told nobody, no one, and now going to do another job somewhere else. So those are already paid jobs. So this looking for the MH370 could be during the lull period where the ship's time is wasted sitting in the port. We might as well look for it. I do this as a business in Malaysia Airlines. It's the same thing I do. We have 200 aeroplanes. Sometimes there's a charter flight, and I can find a spare aeroplane parked on the ground to do that charter flight. So we discuss, we do charter, we make a ton of money because the aircraft is sitting doing nothing. Now somebody comes and charter there. I go there. So eventually I did this on a strategic basis. I find all the gaps where the aircraft can be used for a 10-hour flight. Then I offer travel agent,
Mhm.
pay for the aircraft, charter, load as many people as you want. I already make my money. It does not cost the airline any money because I'm not taking resources out. Very smart, Ocean Infinity. Extremely smart. So that is why the ships are going here and there rather than a solid search. Of course, you can say the oceans are big and all that. Well, who's going to check? You see, I hope you
Yes,
understand the pitch I'm getting.
yes,
I'm not
yes.
accusing. It's good business. It is a business. I mean, talk about sadness, trying to find solution and all that. But research is business.
Okay. You just said that you express your unhappiness with your Malaysian, with your own country, and you have also recently called for more local expertise, Malaysian expertise in overseeing this search, as you just mentioned. My question to that is, why is that local transparency so vital for the investigation at this specific stage?
Well, it's too late now. This should have been done before OE gave the offer. This should have been done in the 10 years when information started coming in. We should have a focus group in Malaysia itself. We're not stupid people. We're not stupid. Malaysia is not a stupid country. We have enough people who understand this. We also can make use of expatriates and all that, you know. We have enough intellectual pool to do this search ourselves. So you find you all the easily available information from very good people who passionately did a lot of research, from Godfrey to Wise to whoever it is. If they make sense, bring them over, talk about it, find out, and be as confident as Ocean Infinity, except this time now, we call contractors to look for it. Look, we are an oil and gas country, oil and gas, ONG, and we have
Mm-hmm,
this thing called Charigali, exploration, bottom of the sea, looking for oil and all that. And we have rented drones. I call them underwater drones, you know, side scan sonar and all.
mm-hmm,
It's the same role they're doing, looking for treasure underground. So there are companies that do this beyond Ocean Infinity, or we could have engaged Ocean Infinity and took the risk and say, let's budget $40 million to look for it, or $30 million to look for it, using local. So we have control. We know when it is being looked at, rather than throw your head in the ring, throw your head into somebody's ring, throw your ring into somebody's head and say 70 million if I find. Okay, now the other thing, elements of fine. What do you mean by fine? 1080p resolution of the plane on the in the water, or retrieval pieces of it, or what? What do you mean by fine? What do you mean by fine?
mm-hmm.
Or they can just show you a picture and tell you, I'm not tell you the coordinates unless you pay me. You see, it is commercial. That is why I say we need to be in control. Some level of control and solid involvement from the government will save money. It will, you can do the search. I'm not saying don't search for it, but do it wisely and not just fold your hand and just say, you
Mm-hmm.
find, I give you 70 million US dollars. Damn, that's taxpayers' money that can be better used. So you should, Malaysia should do research in a more diligent manner.
Mm.
And that would
That
save
makes
us
sense.
money. If we find we lost, it's okay. You know, we don't even know. We don't even know. Malaysia, the paymaster, or at least I don't know. We should know. We should have a rep or two on board. Daily reporting, friend. This is what they did. We have launched this, we have launched that. You know, have a proper, because we're going to pay 70 million US dollars. Damn, a lot of money.
A couple of other questions before we wrap this up is, beyond finding the black box, what do you hope the aviation industry has learned from MH370 to ensure a tragedy of this nature never happens again?
Ah, difficult to say. Difficult. To say. I mean, post to prevent, difficult, but after, immediately after this happened, then there should be no doubt as to where the aeroplane is. So, you know, one of the best things is to keep on having an uninterruptible signal going up every 5 minutes. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
satellite time costs money. Every signal goes up probably costs money to tell you latitude, longitude, and all that. And 99.9% of the time you don't need it because aeroplane land safely. So this thing, will it happen again? I mean, maybe not in this, not in this stealthy way, but pilot involvement in genocide. It's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to stop it. But you would know that he did it. The only
Mm.
difference here is that if he did it, we don't know for sure. So no change there. The other one is that losing an aircraft, there can be change in losing the aircraft. Okay, losing the aircraft means you will find the aircraft right to the moment it crashed. If ICAO says all major airlines flying aircraft above 12,500, 12.5 ton, if you are on a large carrier privilege, operational privilege, it is mandatory for you to have this, just like the Americans did with the cockpit door. Same thing. But cockpit door is a one-off expenditure. This one is daily expenditure. So you have 400 takeoffs a day, total flight time 10,000 hours, broken into
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes. Each minute is $2 US. Do the sums. So that's one way to have positive tracking of the aircraft 24 every 5 minutes, at least every 5 minutes. So your theater of search will be just about 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers based on the aircraft, things like that, you know? So that's one that has changed. The other
Mm-hmm.
one is that despite all the denial, a circular came out very quickly that no pilot is to be left alone in the cockpit. If a pilot goes to the back to take a leak, before he leaves the cockpit, there should be someone else. The cabin crew should accompany him. No, this would not have happened in a three-man crew, that's for sure. But two-man crew, yes, you run through this risk. And as you have seen with German wings. So immediately after this, despite whatever denial, so, we can't believe that he did it or whoever did it, blah, blah, blah. But a circular did come out. It became a matter of procedure that no one is to be left alone in the cockpit. So that's one solid change on following MH370. The other one is the thing has already happened and is happening, and the aeroplane is being taken somewhere, but you know where it's going. And if it crashes, you know where it crashed for sure. I mean, we look at AF447, Air France, the one that crashed in the
Yeah.
Atlantic. So that
Yes.
the icing problem, two junior pilots sitting there fighting with each other, and as the airplane went down and hit the surface of the earth, of the water, it was vomiting all the data directly to Air France, right to the touchdown point. And yet it took 2 years and 2 rounds of fines to find the black box. And the aeroplane was vomiting all the way down. Altitude, attitude, everything, speed, everything was there. It took 2 years. This can be a difficult one. But when when Ocean Infinity put this forward to the Malaysian government, they are sure enough to say that we will not lose the maybe 15 million US dollars that we are going to spend in the next 55 days. So, and I have faith in OI because they are extremely competent in this, and then they are taking data from clever people with no agenda, clever people. So I guess there is a chance that this
Okay.
can be found. But hmm?
Okay. Final question, Captain Nik. As someone from the Malaysia Airlines family, what would it mean to finally provide the families who have waited almost 12 years with the truck?
I don't know. This time I would say it's unprecedented. First of all, it's a real tragedy. Secondly, they went through hell trying to get information for the first few months. And then you have this shock, denial, sadness, anger, all these things and all that. But I think now most of them have already accepted the fact that it cannot be found. And all these people trying to milk MH370 to get likes and all that, not good thing. Because you are prolonging their pain, saying that plane in Diego Garcia, this has happened. Diego Garcia keeps on coming up, locally. Oh, they've seen people and this and that. So not very good. Not very good as for the family. And there's nothing you can do for them. If and when you find the wreckage, then there'll be calls to bring the wreckage up, the bodies and the retrieval is another story altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be easy for the person in charge. And it's not going to be easy for the family. But right now, it is on a downward. sort of like I have agreed. I have accepted the fact that he cannot be found. Accepted the fact that my husband is gone, and I need to. They're moving on, and all these
Okay.
searches is keeping the memory alive again.
Yeah. Captain Nick, your insights remind us that behind every data point and every technical maneuver, there is a human element that cannot be ignored. Thank
It
you for
cannot
your
be ignored.
candor.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for your candor, for providing a voice to the operational reality of the cockpit, and for honoring the legacy of Malaysia Airlines family by searching for the truth. To our audience, if this conversation moved you, please share this episode. By spreading the word, you ensure that this story and the 239 lives it represents is never forgotten. Our collective attention is what keeps the search alive for these answers. Captain Nik Huzlan, thank you so much for being with us today and for taking the time.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.